Hey gang, it's Dr. Brian. Hey, I wanted to just give you a real quick intro on this Doc About Town episode this week and just give you kind of context what's going on here. What you're about to see is a little different. It is some segments of some video that we took while I was working on what is ultimately the next milestone in the fulfillment of a dream for me that started over 37 years ago. So what you're going to see is some airplane footage from within the cockpit of a Cessna 172 of me and my instructor in the first segment, and then after that a couple of segments of me flying the plane by myself. Flying solo for private pilot is a major milestone in any student pilot's pursuit of a private pilot certificate. I'm pretty excited about it. Many of you know that I've been pursuing a private pilot's license for quite a while now, and it looks like it's finally moving in the right direction. So we're pretty excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I wanted to share it with you. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. What I've done, because my audio didn't really work in the airplane like I thought it was going to, it's hard to hear what I'm saying. It's hard to make out what we're saying in the plane. So I'm going to add a voiceover to this and kind of narrate what's happening a little bit. Would love to know your comments or questions you might have down below. Bear with me. Not perfect on this. Got about 30 hours of training in this plane, and I'm still learning. So, but it's fun. I'm having a good time. Love to chat with you about it. And if you have questions, shoot me a message. As always, as we like to say, thanks to the Elks up here in Noblesville Elks number 576, and to Genesis Family Chiropractic for helping to sponsor Doc About Town and bring these episodes to you each and every week. So enjoy.
All right, here we go. Sheridan traffic, Cessna 518, back taxi number 23, Sheridan.
So what you hear happening right now is we're taxiing from the taxiway to the end of the runway. There's a saying in aviation that there's three things that are completely useful to a pilot: the runway behind you, the altitude above you, and fuel in the gas truck. So we're going to use as much of the runway as we possibly can here. What you heard me say there was a call sign basically over the radio announcing my intentions to any other airplane traffic that might be in the area. So we're just taxiing down the runway here. We'll get to the end of the runway, turn around, and then we'll take off here. So I'll be quiet for a minute while we get down there. You will hear me say things throughout the time. Most of the things I'm saying are radio calls, again, like I said, announcing traffic to other traffic in the area, so they know where I am and what my intentions are. I'm, of course, listening for other traffic in the area, which would have come through if the audio had worked properly, but we're going to miss that. It was a really calm morning, but I had a little bit of a gust of breeze there that had to compensate for.
Foot into it, get it back.
So we're getting down to the end of the runway here. We're going to make a swing to the left, so we're facing southwest. The runway calls are runway 23. What that means is if the compass rose is 0 at north all the way around to 359 just shy of north, which would be 360, 23 is like 230 degrees from 0, so southwest, kind of south-southwest.
Sheridan traffic, Cessna 518, departing 23, Sheridan. There we go.
Cessna 518 is the shortened version of the N number for the airplane that we're flying. So. Here I'm watching my airspeed to make sure it's moving, the airspeed needle is moving. Once it is, and I get to 55 to 60 knots of airspeed, we can actually rotate because we're moving fast enough for the wings to produce lift to take us off the runway. Here we're at full power, and I'm reaching down. You see my right shoulder kind of flinching a little bit. I'm reaching down and adjusting what's called the trim wheel to kind of ease the workload on me, so I'm not having to fight the airplane so much. Kind of trim the airplane so it climbs at the rate we want to climb at without me having to force it to do so or keep the nose down from climbing too fast. So I'm making my first turn here, making a left turn into what's called the crosswind of the landing pattern. It's at 90 degrees to the runway. then we'll be in that path for a few seconds. We're still climbing out. We're full power. We're still climbing out to the altitude we need to be at, which is 1,000 feet above the ground. And you can't hear me there over the noise of the engine, but I'm calling out for my next turn, which is turning onto what's called the downwind leg, which is parallel to the runway, traveling the opposite direction. So I'm basically traveling in a heading of 50 degrees, 0 again being north. So just slightly south of northeast heading, parallel to the runway. We're reducing power here. This is a normal procedure here, but what I'm doing is I'm looking around, watching outside the airplane, watching my airspeed, checking my settings. We've reduced to what amounts to cruising level of power. Now we're reducing down to a power setting to get ready to land. As the airplane slows down, you see the flaps deploying over Nick's right shoulder there in that window. That's the first notch of flaps. That helps to slow the airplane down and create enough lift so we're continue to fly, but slower than we would be cruising at. We want to get as slow as we can without stalling the airplane just before we land. So I'm making my next turn here, turning on what's called base, which is the last short leg just before we turn on the final approach. Again, 90 degrees to the runway. Got a little bit of a wind aloft that day, so I continue my turn pretty much all the way around to final approach, where I'm aligned with the runway. Yeah. So what I said there was Sheridan traffic, Cessna 518, turning final, runway 23, Sheridan. Again, just announcing my intentions to any other aircraft that might be in the area. What Nick was reminding me of there is if something doesn't look right on the landing on the approach, and I don't want to just force it to do it, or it would be unsafe to do so, I have the opportunity to do a go round. As long as I initiate it, it doesn't count against me in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here. So thankfully we didn't have to do that. So we're on final now, so you got 2 notches of flaps. I don't know if you saw those come down before. He's still coaching me up here, talking to me. It's hard to understand what he's saying, but we're just talking about flying the airplane, adapting to any breezes that we might have. We did have some winds aloft, so we're using more power here than we normally would be, just to make sure we control the rate of descent. Here in just a second, I'll put the 3rd notch of flaps in. There they go. Down to 30 degrees of flaps. So we're getting pretty slow here. We're between 65 and 70 knots. And we're just about to touch down. You can hear the engine kind of straining, and just a second for the stall warning. There's the stall horn. And we touched down. It was a little harder than we wanted to be, but okay. So
Sheridan traffic, Cessna 518, back taxi 23, Sheridan.
So what you're going to see here is we cut out 2 additional landings that we did with Nick. They were pretty much the same as the first one. Didn't need you to bore you with all of that. So this is actually my first attempt at takeoff pattern and landing on my own. As you can see, I'm alone in the airplane, so truly solo. So I'm back taxiing back to the end of the runway to use all the runway here. And as I'm back taxiing, I'm going to start praying here. If you'll hear, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it or not, but just praying for wisdom and guidance and protection and fun. And some of this I'm just talking to myself, reminding me of my procedures and what my steps are that need to be taken. So one thing that I've set out to do in my training is to make sure I'm doing things right. Flying airplanes you get lazy, you get complacent, can be dangerous. But when you're doing things right, the likelihood of things going wrong is pretty low. And when it does, you control the controllables, and then when something does happen that's unexpected, you can hopefully adapt to it and move on.
Sheridan traffic, Cessna 518, departing 23 Sheridan.
There's that traffic call. And we're powering up. Here we go. I got full throttle. Looking at my airspeed's alive. There we go. And we got 55 knots. We're going to rotate. And we're off the ground. And we're climbing out. What's interesting here as I'm climbing out is Nick had told me that the airplane was going to perform differently without him in the airplane. He's a fairly tall guy, probably around 200 pounds or so, and you wouldn't think 200 pounds would make that big of a difference, but the airplane pretty much leaped off the runway without him in there with me, which was kind of fun. Give a little context here. Normally when we're climbing out with him and me in the airplane together, we're climbing at about 700 feet per minute. At our good climb rate and maintain an airspeed to do so. There I am banking left. You see the sky out the right window there. On this climb out, I glanced down at the vertical speed indicator, and it showed I was climbing at about 1,100 feet per minute. So a good 40%, 40 to more than that actually. About 60-65% faster than what we normally climb with me and Nick both in the plane. So, and I wasn't doing anything differently. We were just climbing that much better. One of the things I love about this is it gives me procedure to work on, and it gives me a sense of make sure I'm doing the right steps, doing the things in the right order that need to be done. But it's also just an amazing sense of freedom when you're up there and you're flying the airplane, and it's just an incredible experience. I would encourage anybody who has even a passing interest in it to take the time and find somebody to do a discovery flight. Most airports that have flight training will offer a discovery flight, usually for a nominal fee. But it gives you a way to go for a flight in an airplane like that and get a feel for it and see if it's something you want to pursue. It's always with a certified flight instructor, so all kinds of great opportunities there. One of the organizations that I'm part of is called the Experimental Aircraft Association, the EAA. The EAA has a really cool program called the Young Eagles program. There I'm turning left base, getting ready to go into my final approach. So the Young Eagles program is really cool because it lets young people, I think the youngest age is 7, all the way up to 18 or 17, participate in Young Eagles days. And they can go for a flight with a certified instructor. There's no fee for that for the Young Eagles. And a lot of times there's reduced rates for training for kids like that. I know our chapter awards a scholarship every year to a young person. Here we are turning final on this approach. We award a scholarship every year for a young person who wants to pursue flight training and go into aviation as a career. So it's a really cool program. I would encourage you to check it out at EAA.org and look for Young Eagles if you have a young person who might be interested, or look for yourself. Here we go. Okay, I'm at 20 degrees of flaps here. I'm checking everything, make sure I'm good. I'm checking my airspeed, making sure I'm between 65 and 70 knots here on my approach. All right, right over the end of the runway now. I'm powered down. Add a little power, get a little low. Talking to myself here, just reminding myself what to do. A little low, add a little more power. Here comes the last notch of flaps. We're at 30 degrees of flaps now. Truly in landing configuration now. Had the runway made is what I said there, so I pull the power back to idle. coming in. Felt really good about this landing. It was a good one. Greased that one on, so had to go stop and back taxi. And so I skipped one here. This is the final of my 3 that I did on that day. And I wanted to show you this one because everything was just the same.
One more time.
Yeah, one more time. I said.
Traffic. Cessna 518, departing 23 Sheridan. Rings off.
Here we go. So if you watch, this looks pretty much the same as all the other 2 that you watched here. The difference is, and what you can't see is, as I was coming on my approach, I had a little more wind starting to pick up, a little more crosswind. So I was maintaining a little more speed, a little more airspeed, just to smooth things out a little bit, make sure I had the runway made. And when I got down to the runway, I still had a lot of that airspeed on. And we're talking maybe 5 knots, which a knot is, if you multiply the number of knots by 1.15, I'll give you miles per hour. So whatever that is, 5 times 1.7. So just under 6 miles per hour of difference in speed. It doesn't sound like a lot, but in that case, you'll see what happened here. It was enough that the airplane, even when I touched down, it still wanted to fly. And so the wheels touched down, and the airplane came back up in the air. And when it came down the second time, it came down a little harder than I wanted it to. So, but I know what I did now. So that means that extra airspeed, I got to really manage that a little better. The flight instructors will talk about managing energy. And that energy is that airspeed we're talking about. So here's the pattern. And if you've made it this far, be sure to check down in the comments. I will add a photograph in the comments of a pretty long-standing tradition. When a student pilot solos for the first time, the instructor will write the details about the solo flight, the date, and all that stuff on the tail of their shirt, and then cut the tail off. And the legend is, or the explanation is, best we can tell, and I've never heard a better explanation than this anywhere, is that back in the day, a lot of trainer airplanes were not side-by-side cockpits. They were front-to-back cockpits, and the instructor sat in the back, and they would push on the student pilot's shoulder, one side or the other, or they would tug on their shirt tail. And the significance of cutting off the shirt tail was the instructor saying to the student, basically, you don't need me tugging on your shirt tail anymore, you've got this, so you don't need the shirt tail anymore. So they cut it off. And the student pilot keeps his memento, and so I've kept mine. I'm going to have it framed as one of those trophies. Seems like a silly tradition, but it's really kind of cool, actually. Looking out the window, looking for the runway. Interesting thing about a high-wing airplane is when you're left turned, you can't see what's to your left very well because the wing's in the way. But so you kind of glance around and try to find that runway. When I come out of the turn, then so you can hear the engine RPMs a little higher than it has been in the last 2 landings here. That's keeping me a little higher than I probably should have been. But I'm keeping my nose down, trying to maintain 70 knots on my descent here. So like I said, I did not manage my energy as well as I would have liked to here. But not unsafe, just not as precise as I'd like to be. See the airplane moving around a little bit. There's a little bit of gust there. I said it was getting a little gustier by the time we were to this point. Do little updrafts and downdrafts here. And so you've made it this far. No, I'm not holding my phone. In fact, I'm not doing anything with my phone. It's mounted to the side of the windscreen here. on a suction cup mount, so I was not messing with it, but it's moving around. Looks like as the airplane moves. Wasn't quite as stable as I thought it would be. Got my third notch of flaps in there. Here we go. First touchdown will be real smooth. There's first touchdown, and then bam, dropped it. See, I'm shaking my head at myself there. I didn't like that, but it happens. Hey, hope you enjoyed it.